Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Same Bet. Now, I gotta be honest with you. That introduction that you just saw, that was the introduction I was planning for next week as we do our holiday special. So, anything can happen when you go live. So you got a sneak peek of the holiday intro. So thank you, everybody, for joining in. We've got a very fun show ahead of you tonight. Our guest this evening is a self-proclaimed newbie to the game of craps. He's been playing this game for about 3 years. He's been a dice setter for about 12 months. He even started his own YouTube channel about 5 months ago. And one of the interesting things about him is he's a dark side player from the beginning. A lot of people evolve into dark side, but this guy, he recognized the value from very early on. Also, he's just back. I mean, he is fresh back off of a boat where he's going to give us a trip report of playing craps on a cruise. So everybody, please welcome Jeff from Mid-Atlantic Craps. Jeff, you
Hello
out there?
there, Dave. Hello, everyone.
All right, everybody. So before we get started, I would like to make sure that we've got a good audio signal. Can you guys hear me okay? And can you hear Jeff? Jeff, go ahead and start talking. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and I'll monitor the chat.
Okay, I'll start out with myself, and you can monitor the chat. That's good. We call myself a self-proclaimed amateur. I consider myself a novice on the crap side because there's so much to this game that I'm still learning that everybody can learn. And I've been playing recreational for years. I actually played a lot on cruise ships, probably the past 20 years. I was a big poker player in the beginning. My local casinos, two of them, they closed their poker rooms, and I kind of migrated over to craps, took it a little bit more serious. COVID hit, and then I started studying the game, if you will, researching the game, practice strategies at home, build a little throwing station. Went from the kitchen table on strategies to a table I built. From the table I built, it included a throwing station. I added the receiving station, then I added the throwing station, and then it turned into the studio table. I call it a studio table because it's really not a craps table, but it performs just like a craps table. If you've watched any of my YouTube videos, it looks like that the way my cameras are set up. So, my journey started out with gambling and poker, migrated into all sorts of casino gambling games. However, I don't play slots. I will say that I don't put any money in slots, but I do play other table games. And this game of craps has become a passion of mine. And I learned early on, as I was losing, that there's got to be a way to win. And I started researching a lot of YouTube channels that highlight the dark or highlight the hybrid side, and I'll go ahead and throw those names out there if it's okay. I watched Big AZ. I watched Jacob from Wager Me This, Greg over at Fives. I watched him. And then my friend, I consider him a good friend, John, and I kind of started our YouTube channel journey about the same time, but he's a much more experienced craps player than I am. And his channel is just doing phenomenal. And he's also kind of like a dark hybrid player. So, I learned that I was losing almost every time I would go on the light side, watch these channels, switched over to a hybrid side of things, and then it started to work. And over the past, I'm going to say almost 18 months now, I've been able to develop the bankroll that I'm working with from my 401g account specifically. And the dark side is where I'm going to say the money has been for me. I'm not, no disrespect to anybody that doesn't like the dark side. But it just seems like if the 7 is your enemy, make it your friend.
Yeah, and I think that that's something unique about you. That as a relative newcomer to the game, you were attracted to that 7 or to the dark side earlier than most on this journey. I've talked to a lot of different people, and everybody goes through, I think, an evolution. You start the game, you're playing the Iron Cross or something you might have seen on Jeremy's channel or some other YouTube strategy out there, and you play it for a while and you get tired of losing 10, 20, 30, 50, 60, $100, a night, and you start to think, man, that 7 looks kind of attractive, and you start playing around with the dark side.
And that's exactly what I did. I would continue to go to the casinos and play the light side while I was at home practicing my strategies on the dark side. And in the beginning, I would say that I was afraid of the 7. And I think you shouldn't be afraid of the 7. And, the big red should be your friend. And once I took what I was doing at home on the table to the casino, all of a sudden I wasn't losing as much. Then it turned into that I was starting to have small wins, and now the way that I play the hybrid system that I play primarily, it works. And I transition in and out of the dark. I played last night with a couple friends that at one of the locals here, and they saw me transition from a long roll that one of my friends had, and you know who he is. I just won't mention his name, but he had a long roll, and I was able to transition out of the dark into the light. And just about the time I was going to transition back in, his roll of 32 ended, but he had made me a lot of money in the meantime.
Yeah. So that actually leads me to one of your questions, or one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. When you do play, we know you're in the Mid Atlantic area. Do you have a home casino or a place that you frequent more than another?
I do. I travel all over the East Coast area because within, I'm going to say 3 to 3.5 hours of me, I have almost 2 dozen casinos. However, locally, I have one that's 25 minutes right in my back door, and I'm going to go ahead and put that out there. I hope that doesn't cause problems with them, but it's in Maryland on the East Coast, on the eastern shore of Maryland, the area known as the Delmarva, and I play at Ocean Downs in Ocean City, Berlin, Maryland. I also play at Maryland Live, and then in Delaware they have three casinos, and all three casinos I frequent. The one in Harrington is closer to me, and then Dover would be next. So those are probably the three primary casinos that I play at, and the ones that I've taken my, I don't want to call it skills yet, but the ones I've taken my strategies that I've learned practicing here, and I go to those tables and play. And also, when I started playing this more seriously, once the casinos opened back up, it was hard to find a table under $15. So finding a $5 table, the only place you could find that is around here is on the cruise ship. Because on the East
Yeah.
Coast, the tables are $25 minimums, and especially in the Baltimore, Washington metropolitan area.
Yep. Okay, so everybody, I really wanted to remind you, if you have a question for Jeff, please put it in the comment. And if you would put a big old Q, a capital Q in front of it, that's going to make it be my indicator that, hey, you've got a question for him. I'll tag it. We might be able to take it right away, or we'll save it for the Q&A session that's coming towards the end. So let's start getting some questions out there, and we'll get to those here in just a few minutes. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about dice setting. I was trying to figure out if I wanted to go there yet, but I think so. So just to recap a little bit, you've been playing this for about 3 years. You've been dice
Seriously.
setting for about a year. You've started a YouTube channel, and we're going to talk about YouTube in just a minute. But tell me a little bit about your dice setting. What do you have favorite sets? Do you have a favorite toss? What? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I do have a favorite set, and I probably use about 6 sets, but let's talk about dice setting and dice influencing and dice control. I say this on my channel all the time. I wish I could control the dice or influence them. I don't think I do. I'm more of a rhythm roller where I like to be in the same pattern, the same mechanisms, and kind of like do the same thing over and over again. I guess sort of like what a golf player would do, or anybody that plays sports. Um, and so I started just messing with the dice on my table here, and I have it set up so that my back wall and where I stand, stick left one or two is my favorite spot, is the same exact distance to my locals here in this area. So I started using a specific set of dice. I downloaded Bone Tracker and started using that as well, and I probably got, I'm going to say at last, maybe close to 12,000 throws in there using specific dice. And although I've had no formal training on dice setting or dice control or influence, I have watched a lot of channels, and I've got a couple friends that do it religiously and have watched me throw and gave me some pointers on my release and things that I'm doing wrong. As far as my dice sets, because I'm a dark player, I like to have the outside numbers come up, and I use a couple for that. My standard come out roll probably would offend some people because it does produce a 7 quite often. But once I get past that, 6 chances of getting past the 7 when I'm rolling and I'm playing the dark on myself, it works for me. And that's a 1 2 1 3. And I know a lot of people are going to say, "Wow, that's a dumb dice set," but it's what works for me. And then I typically, depending on the point, I use a variety of numbers. And everything from both the three Vs, both the 3-5, 3-2, and I use a 6-4, 6-10 cross sixes. And I don't want to put the name out there because he's probably watching or probably put it in the comments. But it's a set that I've become very fond of that's worked for me, and that's the 5-6-3-5 set. And I know if he's watching, he's going to put a comment.
Yeah, we'll watch for it here in just a few minutes. And I just wanted to say something about the dice set. A lot of people will they'll gravitate towards a hardway set or an all seven set or a cross six set or whatever it is. But everything that we do is a variation of one of these core sets, right? And I think that maybe you have clued into something also earlier than other people, that you might have a signature set. You have a set that works good for you. Doesn't mean it's going to work good for me, and it doesn't matter. If it works for you, that's what matters. And so congratulations to you for finding a set or two that you actually
It's
can
about a
produce some
group of
results.
six. Yeah, it's
You know,
about a group of 6 sets.
6 sets? Okay.
It's
All
about
right.
six. Yeah.
All right.
Um,
So I also want to bring up another YouTuber, Wager Me This, Jacob.
Jacob.
I think every chance he gets, he asks me this question. He said, why don't dice setters target the 7? If it's the easiest number to roll, why not give yourself that advantage and shoot for that 7? So let me ask you this. When you're shooting, do you try to roll the 7, or are you trying for a long roll? What's your mode of operations there?
Well, it depends on how I feel with the mechanics of what I'm doing. Obviously, I want to establish a number that isn't the 7 or the 11. So after I get past the 8 ways to lose on the don't, and I don't do that much hedging until I get probably a lot of farther ahead with larger don't bets. But what I'm doing is I play the hybrid system once I get the don't established. I know Greg's from fives is rolling his eyes now, but I just don't want to make the money on the 7. I want to make money in between it. So what I'm doing is I'm playing the hybrid system, which is, which Jacob is probably the leading reason why I play the hybrid system. And then when I change and I either reduce my bets down or turn them off, I do switch to an all 7 set. And instead of throwing it to my normal landing spot, I'm typically, if I'm at stick left 1 or 2, I'm typically throwing it in the right rear hook, and I am throwing a 5-1-2-6 set or the 4-3 on top set in the rear hook. And there are people at my locals when I hit that 7, not because I threw it because I got lucky and hit it. It's just I'm just throwing it because I was ready to end the dice. They'll get mad at me and they'll say things such to me as, why'd you change your throw? Why'd you change your set? Why'd you do those things? And I don't celebrate when I win on the 7, but as well as I do, Dave, there are people that when you're on the don't, they criticize the don't player because I'm really just on the house side. And if I've made, let's just say somewhere between $75 to $100 on myself or another shooter, I'm
Mhm.
happy with that amount of money. I'll pull my bets down. I turn them off. I've gone sometimes 12, 14 rolls with my bets turned off, and just sat there waiting for the 7 to come.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I was at the casino just the other night, and I'll play a don't come on some players, but I've learned not to play the don't come when the shooter is on the same side of the table as I am. It's just my own etiquette type of.
I haven't looked at it that way, but it makes sense.
Yeah, so I lose out on some opportunities. I lose out on half of the table, but I don't make a lot of enemies that way either. I also said that I was going to wait for a Q&A session, but Dice Grinders asked a question relevant to what you're talking about right there. Let me pull it up really quick. So he's saying, can you describe your hybrid strategy? And you started to do that. But are you starting with the don't pass bet and doing don't come using odds or no odds? Maybe tell us a little bit more about your hybrid strategy.
Well, Arnell, it's probably Dice Grinders. It's probably just about the same as you see. Let's see if I can word this. That Jacob over Wager Me This does. I start with a don't, and when I first come up to the table, I typically am only playing a very small don't, and then go into several come progressions to establish some points as I try to, as Brian would say over at Hawaii Crap Shooters, qualify the shooter. And you'll be surprised how many times that I'm breaking even while other people are losing. Let's just say the table's a $10 table, losing their 44 inside. I'm breaking even or maybe making $15 because that's what I start with. So what I do is I counterbalance my don't after the point is established with the right amount of bets on the light side, and as I either press and half press and regress. I always like to be, when I have a hit on the light side, I always like to keep the ABCs in mind, and that is always be collecting. So you very seldom see me power press. You very seldom see me press the full amount that I've won. But if I do have 66 on the inside, with a don't and a point is not a point, but a number is hit, a box number is hit there, I do throw $1 down and I will press that right up immediately.
Now, with your YouTube channel, and I don't want to get into YouTube too much just yet, but do you have this hybrid strategy? Do you have videos out there that explain it and
Oh yeah.
what you roll through it?
Yeah, I have several videos that are out there that talk about why I learned to play the don't, and a lot of those videos got a lot of attention from some very experienced craps players who kind of, I don't want to say they criticized me, because I took it as constructive criticism about how I was playing, and I adjusted to some of their comments and some of the emails that I got from them. There's several videos out there, and I play a strategy that is a combination of wager me this and Hawaii crap shooters Brian's that I call the squeeze four. I start out with a lay on the four with a don't, and everything is covered. And then I migrate out once the point is established. So I do play that quite often. But as far as trying to figure out which way I'm going to go, just like you, I'm probably watching table trends, and I don't always bet on every shooter that's out there. I kind of walk up to the table with an open mind that this is going to be a whole new experience. And these people I may play with quite a bit, um, they are not consistent enough for me to put big money on the don't.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that explained the answer to the question, but I think I've not had an opportunity to play live fantasy craps with Arnell before on that. But on Sunday when I play with the other group with George from CY on live fantasy craps, I do my don't side and my hybrid side almost exclusively.
And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that, Jeff. Um,
As long as I don't lose money.
yeah. Well, what I'm referring to is taking everybody's advice and yeah, taking what you want, discarding the rest. You have to have a little bit of a thick skin if you're going to put your opinions and thoughts out there in the public for review. And that's something that I learned a long time ago is you're not going to please everybody, that is for sure. And you're not going to do it right, and you're going to make mistakes. And when you're doing it on YouTube, it's easy for people to see.
Well, from a YouTube standpoint, maybe we'll get into this a little bit later, is that, I make math mistakes, and I'm good at math. At least I think I am, but I make simple math mistakes, and I'm not a dealer. I can't handle the stick, or do that. But when you take the criticism, every comment that somebody puts on my channel and every email gets answered. I know I'm a small channel at the moment, but I answer every single one of them, and I respond to them in kind. That thanks for your comments or your concerns, and then I try to explain myself if they don't understand exactly what it is that I'm doing. But I really like the people that correct me on the math when I make a math error, because being good with math, it upsets me when I get to the end of the video, watch it, and all of a sudden, well, I really didn't win, 290. It's really 210 because I made a mistake. And as you know, all my videos are shot unedited. I don't
Yep.
slice and dice them up.
Yeah. That's we all do that, especially when we're starting out making those math mistakes. Because you're right, we're not trained dealers. We throw the dice. That's our job. But when you're doing it on YouTube, you have to play all the roles. So you have to play all the roles.
Right. I can
All
take
right,
the
real quick.
criticism. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say real quick, everybody. One of the things that I like to do on this show is a spotlight. I called it recognition before, but I'm changing it to the spotlight. And today I'm going to change it up just a little bit more again. I'm going to talk about somebody. Let you see if you can guess who it is, and I'll reveal who the spotlight winner is of this week. So, right now I want to give a shout out to one of the earliest members of the Craps Nation. He was there with us from the very beginning as we were trying to grow this into the number of I think it's 161 people that we have in the chat today. He's also hosted a quarterly fantasy craps tournament. Now, it's been a while. It's been a long while. But there was a time when we were getting people together and we were trying to figure out who is the best. And having these quarterly tournaments allowed us to dwindled down to see who the winner was going to be. And I can't remember for sure, but I think this person might have actually won the tournament as well. He was the host, and I think he won it. He'll correct us if it's not. He's also known for welcoming new members into the Craps Nation. He's the first one out there to say, okay, guys, here's some of the guidelines. I don't want to call them rules, but there are some guidelines that we have out there. He also talks about, he keeps a roster of everybody and their emails and their YouTube channels and things like that for everybody to share. It's totally transparent, but he is the person that takes care of all of that. He's also done some group meetups for the game of craps. Recently, I want to say it might have been last night or even the night before last that he was out there with some of the other members of the Craps Nation. But it's not unique. He's out there quite a bit with several of our other people. He's also a very strong crap shooter, often getting 20 plus rolls. And the one that's probably going to tip it off, he's also played the part of a Roman centurion. And we're going to leave it at that. We'll come back here at the very end and reveal who is our spotlight person of the day. So that's having a little bit of fun. Jeff, I'm just curious, do you happen to know who this person might be?
I have two people in mind, but I'm pretty sure it's the person I shot with last night. I don't know that for sure, but it's very possible. The Roman centurion fooled me. The rest of the stuff, it's one of two people. But I'm pretty sure it is. And I'm glad I didn't mention his name earlier, who I shot with last night, because he was the one that had the 32 roll. And he said, you see, I'm glad you got to see it because nobody believes me.
Yeah.
And he took him 3 rolls to get there, but he took me from being about probably $200 down to being $400 ahead in that roll.
Nice.
I think. Now, I could be wrong with who it is. We'll wait to the end. But,
well, I'll ask you your thought right
sure.
before I do the reveal and see if it really is that person.
It's one of two people, I think. I could be wrong, and if I am, then I'll be embarrassed.
Yeah. All right, so I've got a couple more topics that I wanted to get to. Well, I want to talk a little bit about your YouTube channel, and then I want to finish with your experience on the Craps Cruise, or I shouldn't call it the Craps Cruise because that's used by Heavy Haltom, but you were on a cruise and you played craps. So we're going to end the show with that conversation. But let's talk a little bit about YouTube. What in the world prompted you to make your own YouTube channel?
Well, it's how it started was I had no intentions of making a YouTube channel. As I've talked with you off camera, you know that I'm going into retirement in early spring next year. And I have several hobbies and several vices. None of them are bad unless I guess if you're losing constantly roll after roll and session after session, that might be a bad session. But I took my makeshift kitchen table layout, rolling Monopoly dice, watching YouTube channels, rolling along with them, into buying a throwing station to try to see if there's anything to this dice setting, into a layout, into a table. My table build is nothing like Craftsmaster Journeys is. Joe's got one heck of a build video out there. This is just, I call it a studio. If you've ever been to a television studio, it doesn't look like what you see on TV. It looks this way. So I started recording my throws at the suggestion of one of the people I think that you may be talking about. If it's not the first one, it's this one. And he said, send me some videos and I'll see what you're doing. So I started recording some videos because I have audio and video equipment accessible to me. And I started doing that. And the more I recorded the throws, I was talking through them. And as I was talking through them, they made sense to me. And I've just continued that approach from a standpoint of taking a recreational craps player into let me see how much I can learn about this game. Let me see what all these YouTube commenters are talking about. Let me read a book. Let me come out here and see if the math works. And so far, I took that approach into recording, into the table, into the YouTube channel that's approaching about 100 videos.
You know, that I had a very similar start. In fact, that's how the Same Bet name came about. Is I would take the same bet that I saw Jeremy from Color Up or a couple of other people. I would mimic it. I would try it on my table, see if I could have the same kind of results. So I was essentially playing the same bet. Not that I was advocating same bet as a valid betting strategy, but that's how the name came about.
I like the name.
So,
my name, Mid-Atlantic Craps, I actually wanted to take East Coast Craps, but a friend of both of ours who you know, I didn't know he was a friend of mine until we started communicating, and we used to play poker together 20 years ago. Lo and behold, he has the East Coast Craps name, and I have the Mid-Atlantic Craps name. It's a small world. We live 20 miles apart.
You guys together, you guys have that coast covered.
Yeah, hopefully.
So let's talk a little bit again about your YouTube channel, and it's not just strategies and you're rolling things out, but I have to say that you have one of the better production values out there. Not necessarily that you have more cameras or fancier equipment, but your use of overlays and transitions and things like that. It's more engaging, I think, than some. So it makes me wonder: do you have experience with doing video broadcasting?
Well, let's start with the broadcasting first. I do have a broadcasting background before I got into the line of work that I'm in now that I'm going to be retiring from. And I was a radio announcer. I was a program director before I started in this journey. I like that, Waylon. I started at a Roll Tide. I started that with probably took that broadcasting career into a public safety career on the broadcasting side and turned that into where I am today. And once I retire, I'll make that announcement. I just don't want to talk about that now. But from a video standpoint, I have two friends that are professional photographers, and one of them is a videographer as well. Now, my camera equipment that's in here isn't high tech stuff. Most of it was bought used off of eBay or Facebook Marketplace. And some of it was given to me from hand-me-down stuff. The computer I got, I had to buy a powerful computer, and then off to this side of the screen is a 32-inch monitor that's also doing a program that I use, which is opposite of yours because you're on the iOS platform. I use OBS, and that all came natural to me, how to do the overlays and the transitions and how to make screens and do those kind of things. Fortunately, from the Craps Nation group, I was able to get hold of the KPI, the roll tracker that you've used before, and George and Troy and Andrew, all those guys were great with that to get me into that. That was an Excel program that was converted over to a Google Sheets that works well. So it kind of all went together. Electronics, computers, video, photography, and I'm going to take this from John Scrapsathon. Somebody called me the voice. So I've kind of incorporated the voice into my channel as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that makes sense or not, but the equipment here, the most expensive piece of equipment I have in here is the PC that I'm communicating with you, because you have to have that graphics card. If you're going to start a YouTube channel and you're going to stream live, you got to have powerful graphics.
Yes, you do. Yeah, absolutely. So, everybody, if you have not checked out Mid-Atlantic Craps on YouTube, I highly encourage you to do so. Like I said, he's got the voice, he's got the production value, he's got the strategies, so he's the entire package. So if you haven't checked him out, please go out and subscribe to his YouTube channel. Now,
Dave, if I could I just say one thing? I like to think of myself as a novice. I'm not an expert. So if somebody's intimidated by this game because it's so intimidating, come to my channel and watch. Listen to me talk about it. Listen to me talk about my journey to get to where I am talking to you today. Because this game not only can be fun if it's played right and you use common sense, good bankroll management, and good techniques, you can manage and maintain your bankroll while you wait for that super long roll like last night, which I'm pretty sure it's the person that you're going to name here at the end that got me there. And you wait for that. So with that said, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think maybe you're going to go to the website channel, but if you weren't, I'll get that before we leave.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I was going to talk a little bit about other social media or other what's your plans for the future with Mid-Atlantic Craps.
Well, as I wind down in retirement, I'm training my successor, so I don't have as much time as I did, during COVID and so forth. So I do have a website. It's just not active. I do have website design background as well. It's going to be midatlanticcraps.com. I do have plans on getting on other social medias, but I like to take one thing at a time, tackle one thing at a time. And this YouTube thing has been a learning curve because I can produce the video. Just getting it to show was a whole different learning curve. So Facebook is coming with Mid-Atlantic Craps, and Instagram is going to come in the spring, but I don't foresee those happening probably before, I would say, springtime at the earliest. And it's not that I don't want to use the social media, because I see all the other YouTubers that are out there using social media, but I think you should master one thing first, get proficient with it, and then try to move on. I think a lot of the social media I do have some issues with certain aspects of what social media does. I'm not going to get into that realm of it, but YouTube just seems to be, where the craps community, the learning community, the YouTube content craps producers are. And I've even gone to Twitch and looked over there, and you can't find as much as you can on YouTube. And I have become really good, we'll call them online friends with several of the the powerhouse YouTube contenters. And you mentioned Color Up and Jeremy several times. I guarantee you, I have watched every one of his videos, and I'm in his Discord channel, and it's worth the money that I pay for that as well.
Yeah, he's got a great community built over there. All right, so unless you have any other comments that you want to talk about YouTube or social media or things like that, I'd like to change the conversation and talk about the other side of what we wanted to talk about. You're fresh back from a cruise, and I really wanted to pick your brain. I've never been on a cruise, so I don't know anything about it. I don't have a baseline to go from. So I'm really excited to hear about your entire process. Did you choose this cruise because of gambling, or did you choose it because of the destination? The floor is yours. Tell us all about playing craps on a cruise.
I don't want to say I'm going to become your travel agent because I have enough to do as it is, but I've taken probably 40 people on their very first cruise over the course of 20 years. I did not pick this cruise line specifically for gambling. I have thought about going on a couple of, as you mentioned earlier, of the craps cruises that are actually billed as that. You book through them and you go and you meet the crew. You get some experience and education. But no, I've been cruising now, like I said, for 20 years. COVID put a halt to it. I actually came back from a cruise in January of 2020. The person I was with, we both got sick. We didn't get as sick as COVID, but we kind of felt that we had COVID, and we got past that because everybody on the ship seemed to be sick. But that had nothing to do with this. So I don't want you people to worry about going on the cruise ship and getting COVID, because all cruise lines have to follow CDC guidelines. And if you go today, there are some things you have to do. And if you're not vaccinated and you don't want to wear a mask, a cruise right now is not for you. When this mess clears up, it would be for you. But I chose the cruise line because basically it's in my back door. I didn't have to fly down to Florida. I could just cruise right out of Baltimore. And I'll go ahead and say the brand name. I'm not endorsing them because I've cruised many other cruise lines as well. But the Carnival's right in my backyard. I went in October on the Carnival Pride. They've positioned that ship into Tampa. They brought up the Carnival Legend, which I cruised on back in 2006 out of New York, and the ships are set up the same. So I just went. One of the things that I don't go just for the gambling or just for the craps. So I travel with a group of people that go quite often. They're actually going next month in January, but I have another commitment, family commitment in February. I don't think I could afford to do it all, so I'm not going with them in January. But from the standpoint of cruising and craps, it's fun. But what I've noticed is that over the years, the craps players on the cruise ships have dwindled to just be a first-time recreational people, playing the $5 pass line they only do 2 times odds on this cruise line, with 2 times odds, and basically learning the game. I helped a lot of people on this ship, handed out a couple of my Mid-Atlantic craps chips to them. Too. I don't know that they've subscribed yet or not. Told them about my channel, kind of talked with them a little bit. But there's other gambling on the cruise ship. Like I said earlier, I don't play slots, but I do play other table games. I do play blackjack, and I do play the Texas Hold'em version of either the WPT's Ultimate Texas Hold'em or Heads Up Hold'em, and I do play the other table games. And I kind of split my time up. But what I liked about these last 2 cruises was I go to the table in the morning when they first open, Dave. It's me and me alone. $5 on the pass, and I'm practicing. And I'm practicing.
Oh, wow. It's a $5 table?
$5 table, yes. $500 maximum, $5 table, and only 2 times odds. So that means you can go 4 times on the dome if you want to, but it's 2 times odds. But I would sit there for, I wouldn't say hours on end. I typically balled in for a low bank buy-in in the morning, and I would just do the $5 pass line, put the dealers up for $1 next to me, and double odds and play. And then I work myself into 22 inside. 22 inside would go to 44. I'd spread out. If I made money, I made money, but typically it was me. The afternoon sessions, I became a little more serious with a larger buy-in, doing some of the dark strategies you and I spoke about earlier. And then my nighttime sessions, that's when the craps players that are the serious craps players are getting done with dinner. They're getting away from their spouses. They're able to squeeze in a session between dinner and a comedy show. They come back after the comedy show. And that's when you have your typical same type of style of craps that you and I see at the casino when a table gets full.
So tell me a little bit about the size of the casino. Can you compare it to any of the, maybe the, I don't know, anything in Atlantic City or something that we might be able to relate to about how big is the casino?
It's a casino size 12-foot table. If you've played on a 12-foot table, both my locals have 12. I believe one of them has a 14-foot table. I played in the Northeast in spring of last year up at the Foxwoods in Mohegan Sun, and they have 16-foot tables, which I did not like.
Wow.
But their 12-foot table regulation, I don't know what regulation is, but regulation height. I measured it to the base of the table was 29 inches, and it's as wide as a normal table. And when I'm standing at stick left one or two, and I'm throwing, it's like I'm throwing on my table here. The surfaces are hard, and it appears as if they've taken one layout and put over the top. And I actually asked one of the pit bosses one time, "What's underneath that?" And he said another layout. And I asked him if there was any under laminate or anything. He didn't understand what I was saying, but he didn't believe so. And it's set up just like the table that you had before you changed out your table. You know, it's a regular craps table. Can accommodate 6 to 7 on a side.
Now, I know you said you don't play slots, but any kind of estimate how many slot machines they might have?
I would say 500 probably. I
Wow.
was twice this week. I was once at one of the tables, the Texas Hold'em Ultimate table, and the lady behind me, she started screaming. And of course, you know, when people scream, and you hear that in the casino all the time, but she kept screaming. And when I turned around, she had won $10,000, and I'm thinking
Wow.
I'm playing the wrong daggone game. And on the last night, I was on the craps table, and somebody on the opposite side of the casino, you could hear them hooting and hollering. Somebody walked by and said she also won $10,000. So,
Man.
to go on a cruise and win 10 grand would be great. I go to for the value of of how much it costs, because right now cruise ships are not sailing full. If you've cruised before and you're in their casino package, I'm telling you that you and a significant other or two guys or whatever that wanted to travel together, you could probably go for under somewhere under $400 a person for 7 days. And that includes your entertainment, your room, your food, all the things you can do, and your stops. Don't forget the stops along the way. I mean, I've been to the
I,
Bahamas so many times. Sometimes I don't get off the cruise ship.
well, I was going to ask about that. I am not a beach goer or a swimming pool kind of guy. So, what else is on a cruise that I would do? Is it just gambling?
Well, it's not just gambling. You know, you do have the decks during the daytime because the casinos are closed when you're in port. There are a few ports that allow the casinos to operate in port, but they're closed. So you have to find something else to do. If you're going to travel with your significant other, um, I'll throw a joke out there. Your wife or your girlfriend or both. There's my joke of the day because I always put one in my videos. They there's you have the deck. They have all kinds of activities that are planned from the young to the old. They have game shows. You can participate in the game shows. Then you can eat like you've never eaten before. Alcohol is not included unless you buy it in your package. But if you get a casino package, they pay for your drinks while you're playing in the casino. I'm not a heavy alcohol drinker. Typically, I'm buying everybody's drinks around the table that's not in the package. And then at nighttime, they have production shows. Like I wouldn't call it like New York style production shows, but they're production shows that's worthwhile to watch, especially if you're with your significant other. And then the comedy. If you like comedy, there's typically 3 to 4 comedy shows on Carnival. Their comedy routine is known as Punchline Comedy Club. And we had the two people on this last cruise, the comedians that were really funny, and they had been around on a lot of the comedian talk shows and played in a couple movies. The one guy was in one of the Eddie Murray movies from way back when. He hadn't aged that much, but he sure was funny. And so if you have kids with you, they have PG rated shows, and then for the adult show, typically the 10:30 and 11:30 show. If you're easily offended by any type of offensive, whether it's racism or talk about sex or talk about things that are very sensitive today, those shows aren't for you. But I'm telling you, they're worth going forward, Dave, because you will laugh your butt off.
Yeah. So, are the shows included in the price of your ticket?
Everything I mentioned, but the alcohol and your money for to play games with, gamble with.
Wow. That. So it sounds to me like it's just an amazing value.
It can be. Now, I've cruised in the past in the late 2000, early 2010s to about 2017. That was getting pretty expensive to cruise for two, and now you're talking a couple thousand. Plus, if you're going to cruise out of, let's say, the Gulf Coast or down out of Florida, you have to get there. You have to have a hotel room, so it can get pretty expensive. I typically cruise with about 8 other couples, and we plan these things out. But right now, everybody's just looking at the low rate, saying, "Hey, we can jump on this ship in Baltimore again. Let's go. It's our cost is 500. What's your cost? Well, my cost typically is about 200, 250 a person plus the insurance.
Yeah.
But it's. I think if you're worried about getting seasick or motion sickness, they have things on the ship that can help you. I typically, when I take newcomers, I tell them what you need to do to start planning before time. But I'm telling you that the last two cruises, Dave, smooth sailings all the way. It didn't affect anything at all, including, I know you're going to ask about did it affect my dice roll? This time it hasn't. I have been at a cruise that I think it would have. I probably wouldn't even been playing at that particular moment when it was rough. But for the most part, these last two cruises, actually the last four cruises, had beautiful weather.
Well, that was another question I wanted to ask about. So I think you said you went to the Bahamas?
Yes.
Yep. So what was
I
the
went
weather
to
like?
Nassau and Freeport both times, and on the October cruise we went to Princess Cay, and on this last cruise we went to Half Moon Cay. They're both owned by the Carnival and Princess Cruise Lines. They own them. They own the little island, and so you stop there. They don't have to pay like port fees and taxes when they're in port, like they do when they pull into Nassau or Freeport, or if you went to Aruba or Curacao, Honduras, Cozumel. They're paying port fees and taxes for every passenger that's there. So they bought their own little islands, and that's where I have the most fun. Thursday was probably the best day because it was 88 degrees with low humidity and a light breeze on the beach at Half Moon Cay, and it was snowing where I was, snowing where I live, and I was down there. And then Thursday was my most profitable day playing craps on the cruise ship. So I had a good Thursday. I don't know. I want to talk about the other days, but I had a good Thursday.
Yeah. So you're saying it is kind of like a real casino experience. You have some good days, you have some bad days.
Yep. And when you walk into the casino, it's the same bells and whistles, the ding, ding, dings and all the noise and the hooting and the hollering, so forth. But I tell Brian I'm going to take a cruise and come to Hawaii. That's what I'm going to do there. I owe him a T-shirt and a chip.
There you go. Yeah, I'm noticing some of the comments in here about, they might not live on the coast, so the cost of a flight or the cost of the travel to get to where to the port might make
that's where I have it. It's right in my backyard at the moment. But I typically, before COVID, I was cruising out of Florida, and I would have to pay the airfare, get a room ahead of time, and then get your transportation to the cruise ship. So it is just like going. If you and I were going to travel to Las Vegas, you have to make all those accommodations. You just take a mega casino, size it down with one craps table and about 12 other table games and 500 slots, and squeeze it between wall to wall, because the beam of the ship is 91 feet wide and it was 1,000 foot long.
Yeah. I just got back from a Florida vacation about a month ago, and we drove over to Port Canaveral, I think is what it's called.
Yes, Port Canaveral.
And
out of there too.
We drove up to the ships, and being from Kansas, in the middle of, I don't see a whole lot of ships and boats. That thing was huge. I had no idea how big those things could get. And it actually made me feel a little bit more comfortable about the thought of going out on one. That okay, well, it's big. It's not a little bitty rinky-dink thing. It's going to go up and down, up and down. Well, it's not going to be some 3-hour tour from Gilligan's Island,
Well, they have those too off the Florida coast. You can go out for a gambling cruise. But those ships, like the one I cruised on, was a medium-sized ship. I think it was 85 tons. They've got them now 125, 130 tons. And my ship full would have had 2,500 passengers and about 1,800 crew members. The cruise I'm going on in August is one of Carnival's newer ships. It has 5,800 passengers and 3,000 crew members.
Yeah.
And two casinos. It also has two casinos on this cruise. That's a Mardi Gras. I'm going on a Mardi Gras in August.
Yeah, I was reading a little bit about them, and it's like managing a city is what they equated it to. It's just unreal. I'm going to have to go. I have to try one.
You have to. And I'm going to put this plug out there because you hear it on every cruise. Those cruises have nationalities of probably somewhere between 60 and 70 countries, Dave, and everybody gets along. If I could just say that, everybody gets along. I just wish the world was like that today.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. All right, guys, I'm going to give you one last chance to put some questions out there. We're going to go to Q&A here in just a few minutes. We've had a chatty group here tonight, so I've got several things for you here in a couple of minutes.
I haven't
So,
seen any of the chats.
oh, that's great. Okay, so that's a good thing. All right, so you know, cruises. I was going to ask, do you recommend them or not? But it's pretty obvious that by the tone of your voice and the way you brighten up, that cruises are a lot of fun for you.
They are.
So let's maybe talk about some of the things that can go wrong, or what's the downside of a cruise.
Not making the ship, not getting back to port in time, because they will leave you.
Yeah.
I always travel a day ahead of time when I went to Florida out of Baltimore in October. I got caught up in the traffic jam that I really thought I was going to miss the ship. Fortunately, I didn't. So you always want to plan ahead and make sure that you're in the city of where you're going to, uh, embark from on time and make the proper arrangements. I can tell you that if you use a travel agent, there's nothing wrong with going through the travel agency. You're going to pay the same price if you book through their website. The thing that you get with a travel agent is you get their help and assistance when things do go wrong. I've never had anything go wrong on a cruise ship outside of the airline. Lost my luggage, and believe it or not, it
Hmm.
showed up at a stop in St. Croix the next day.
Oh wow, that's that's amazing.
Yeah, that
Well,
was the airline, not the cruise ship.
so I don't know if I'm going to jump over to here real quick and talk about the coming soon. Next week I've got Howard Newman. We're going to do a little holiday special with Howard. He's going to talk. He's been on the show a couple of times, and we've talked about his past as an actor, as a singer, as an artist. But we haven't really got too deep into his career with Craps. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Take some questions and answers. So be thinking about what you want to ask one of the highest rated crap shooters ever. So be sure to tune in next week. Come to me with some questions, and let's get Howard to tell us a little bit how to play craps. On December 27th, I'm not going to have a show. I've talked about this for the last couple of weeks. I decided I don't have a guest for it. I'm just not going to do it. We're going to take that week off, recuperate, and go on. Now, January 3rd and January 10th, I don't have anybody yet. I've got several emails out there, and one of them, I'm going to say it here because I'm really hoping he will join us, is Craig Shackelford from You Are Comped. And if anybody knows anything about You Are Comped, cruises are very big on their list of things that they can help get discounts for. And then January 17th, Tony Leo, he's going to return to the show. We're going to talk about other games. We're going to talk about craps, baccarat, blackjack, roulette, you name it. We're going to talk about it and have a little fun with Tony. So the reason I wanted to do this now is I wanted to come back and ask if you're familiar with You Are Comped. Have you had any dealings with them in the past?
I have not had dealings with that group, but I am familiar with them. I My traveling goes through the group that I use consistently because we're cruisers. But when I travel elsewhere, like the Vegas or the Atlantic City or something, I make all the arrangements myself. But I am familiar with the group.
Okay. So I hope we learn a lot more. I really hope that he will accept the invitation and come on the show. So, Craig, if you're watching this, you've got an audience here. You got a set of people that might be interested in your services.
Well, I'll be on next week when you have Howard on because I'll probably be typing some questions in. And then the one that you had Tony on at the end, I've actually
Yep.
communicated recently with Mark Kilgore, who you know.
Yeah, Mark's
So
out there watching us right now.
yep, I'm hoping to get with him. I've communicated through the messaging group that you're familiar with, and I'm hoping to get there when I retire in the spring. I told him that I hope to get there because I sent Mark one of my chips, and he sent me an email. And we started talking back and forth.
Nice, very nice. All right, let's go ahead and flip it back over to the Q&A session. Now, not all of these are going to be Q&A, and they're not going to come in order. So I apologize, everybody, that please bear with me. So if you were put a question out there earlier, it might be one of the last ones we get to. I'm not sure how it chooses the order here. But skill and luck, he's saying just say no to any 3-hour tours. So there we go, some skill and luck humor.
Yeah, it is some skill and luck humor because what he does for a living, his tours are much longer than 3 hours.
Yeah, yeah. Next one, God, truth, forever, and amen. It says, do you guys meet up in Atlantic City? And can we have an email or info to contact you for AC players to be part of your playing sessions? You know,
Sure, we welcome that. As a matter of fact, coming up in the spring, one of the things that I failed to talk about when you asked me, coming up in the spring, I'm going to get some of my viewers and subscribers together, and we're going to meet up in the Philly AC area. It seems like, but there's several forums that constantly meet regularly. If all they need to do is just to send me an email at midatlanticcraps@gmail.com, and I'll be glad to communicate with them and tell them how and when we meet. I have not been to AC yet. We just did play with the Friday before I went on the cruise. We played at Parks in Philly with a couple of the group that you're familiar with.
I'm putting it out there in the chat real quick. It's midatlanticcraps@gmail.com.
Yep.
Okay. Very good. So it's in the chat for everybody. All
Thank
right,
you.
let's come back to the next question. Oh, it's a question from Fives. Jeff, do you think I'll
Greg,
be able to turn you to fully to the dark side, or are you always going to be a hybrid player?
he's asked me this question, and he's made some comments on his channel as well. Greg and I started out very early in my YouTube journey with. I got a lot of guidance from Greg and a lot of corrections from him, and I think the world of Greg. I'm actually looking forward to going to Florida in the spring, and hopefully we can get together and I can sit there and play with his cats and him on that table that you see him play with. But I don't know if you're going to be able to turn me totally dark side, Greg, because during the week you kept telling me just one time, Jeff, just one time, play dark, and I did. I started out with a $15 don't only and let it roll. I did a 25, and I did a $50 don't, and I was getting smashed by the points.
Well, I'm going to put it out there right now. Greg, I'm going to invite you onto the show here in the next several weeks. So let's
I
talk.
told him he needs to.
Yeah, so let's talk. Let's get you on the show and have a real dark side conversation. All right, let's keep going here. Googs50 says, I can say I get less beat up playing the dark side versus the light side.
That's what I discovered early once I made the transition. And the key to it, Dave, is you start in the dark. If you make it past the 8 ways that can hurt you on the come out, or you can hedge them once you get to that side of understanding the hybrid, and you can transition in and out of the dark side to the light side and back in. It's once you learn. I don't want to call it tricks because that's not it. Once you get it in your mind how you want this to go, then typically what I like about the light side is turn my bets off, and if I don't like what I see, I can even pull the don't down. Now I don't. Typically, I hedge the point. I should say hedge the point. I place the point with my don't bet, so it's equal. I'll turn everything off but that.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's go back over to Waylon. He's asking, was the table and dice worn out this time?
Well, Waylon is. I knew he was in the audience. That's the. He's got me turned on to the 5635 set. And last time the dice and table were both worn. The table layout was pitted. The dice they had no points on them. Um, they were worn dice. This time the table condition was relatively okay. It was better than the October cruise, but these dice had to be brand new because they had good points on them. And the table, although some people worry about bouncy and hard, it was a hard table. But the way that I throw and where I land, I don't get much action off the back wall.
Nice.
I'm
Okay.
not like Greg and chunking them down there. Just kidding, Greg.
The softball pitch. All right, so I'm sorry, Joe over at Craps Master Journey. He asks, did you get any slack from the cruise staff for promoting your channel?
Absolutely not. Joe, that's Joe from Craftsmaster Journey.
Yep.
He, the cruise, the pit people that are there, they don't want to see you lose. The dealers certainly don't want to see you lose, just like anywhere else. And as far as the talk that goes on amongst people and sharing knowledge, even when you're playing table games and sharing cards and those kind of things, it's a lot more relaxed than it would be if you have Big Brother is watching you, but very seldom is there any issues. I don't even remember one time they had to say, let's go review the camera to see whether or not you had to place if you placed a bet on the ATS or not, or if somebody dealt something wrong, or you had a place bet out on a table game or something. But no, they're absolutely wonderful. And by day two, they're not calling you by your last name; they're calling you by your first name.
Nice. All right, next one. Robert Barnes left a comment. Says, my wife was worried about going on a cruise because she can't swim, but we go to Las Vegas all the time, so I asked if she could fly. Let me bring that back up. I didn't get to see the last of it.
I missed it too.
Oh, come on. There we go. like a bird if there was a problem with the plane. So, yep, might not be able to swim, but we can't fly either. So might as well take advantage of both of those. Robert, it's good to see you again, buddy.
You'll
All
be
right.
surprised how many people don't swim, Dave, that go on cruises. When they go on when they get off the ship to go on to whether it's a beach like Half Moon Cay, they're very protective of what they're doing. And in the pools are small. They're only 4 foot, 4 inches deep. And they have life preservers for kids, if you know what I mean, the small ones.
Mm-hmm.
And they have lifeguards right there. So most of the time, you don't even know you're on the ship.
Gotcha. All right, we've got a question coming in from Ed over at Roll to Win Craps. What is the clue to transition from the light to the dark? Is it the number of rolls? Is it gut feeling? What's your indicator?
Well, Ed, I can tell you that if I was playing when you were rolling the dice, I would not be on the dark side. I can tell you that if I knew that Ed was there rolling. It's more or less the transition point is I establish my baseline. So whatever my don is, I'm either going to have equal amount or a hedge to offset that. And I only let a shooter burn me twice. You hear me say that in my videos all the time. If they hit 2 points or come out 7 and a point, I either wait, don't place any bets against them, or I just don't play at all. So when I transition in, once I've got a set amount in my mind of what I want to make on an Ed, it would be a big amount because I know he's going to have a long roll. But the point of when you transition out is more of a gut feeling. Ed, you're an experienced, dice controller, influencer. I've watched many of your videos. I played with you on Live Fantasy Craps a few weeks ago when you had that monster roll. And I'm going to say it's got to be, I'm going to say it's a hunch, but I have a set amount in my mind. Once I make that amount, I start reducing or turning off altogether and just wait for the 7. If I lose the don, I've already got it covered with what I made on the light side.
Gotcha. Okay, Craftsmaster Journey. I'd like to know a little bit more about this one. He says, I know some casinos treat some of the YouTubers different, and I'm not sure if he's talking about cruises or just the casinos. Joe, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that whenever you get a chance. All right.
I can tell real quick if I could touch on that.
Yeah.
I actually asked about filming in the casino for that purpose, and they gave me a casino contact on the land to talk to about a future cruise. But on the East Coast here, they allow no cameras in, and I like the guys that get to go to Vegas and shoot downtown or wherever they're shooting. I love to watch the live videos that they're doing. Doesn't matter whose channel it is.
Yeah, we got, Mel Ho does quite a bit of downtown at El Cortez. Ryan, Hawaiian Crap Shooters, that they're known for doing some of the live. Big AZ, he plays at the Plaza all the time.
Yep.
So there are definitely some places in Vegas that you can film with prior approval.
Correct.
All right, so let's keep going with the Q&A. Lou Louie, you're at the table for one reason: it's to make money, not friends. Do you agree with that?
No, I do. I do agree with that. I'll tell you that when we get to your answer to your question, I don't want to say his first name. He'll just go by East Coast. But when he and I play, we're there to make money, and we don't communicate to one another. Typically, I'm at stick left 1. He's at 2. When I'm done shooting stick left 1, I back up, let him have stick left 2. We're not high fiving. We're not having a lot of table chatter. We're watching what's going on. We're watching the table. We're watching the moves, and we're also watching to make sure we get paid right. Nothing against dealers at all, because we're all human and make mistakes. But a new person to the game, if you don't know what you're getting paid, they're only human, and you really got to watch that because that can affect your bottom line. So I don't have a lot of table chatter. I don't. I stick to myself. The person you're talking about last night during that long roll, I'm pretty sure it's him. I never said anything to him until he said, "I don't know how long this can go," and I said, "Shut up."
Yeah, don't say anything else. Yeah, I've been at the craps tables with friends in a meetup, in a big meetup, and it was different.
Yes,
we were not serious. It was actually, it was back in October after about 10 months of lockdown, and it was more of a I don't know, stress relief is maybe the way to put it. But I think if we were to get together with that same group of people, we would take our stress relief to the restaurants and to shows and whatnot. But when we're at the table, you're right. It's all business. We're there to make some money and spend that money in other places. Yeah.
And I think people like you and I, when we go travel with people that we play craps with, I think we sort of have that. It's an unwritten rule that you don't interrupt, you don't celebrate
Right.
like you normally. Well, you might high five somebody and those kind of things, but you don't have those recreational players that are constantly interrupting the game, throwing their money down, during the roll. The younger kids. I did have some of the party atmosphere on my ship. I reported in one of my trip reports that it just got to be so distracting. I quit playing
Yeah.
that night.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back over to the comments. We've got God Truth Forever and Amen. What AC casino do you like the best?
Well, my personal AC casino that I like, that I've only played craps at probably maybe 5 times, but I like it because it has a poker room as well, and that would probably be the Borgata. But several of the boardwalk casinos are just as well. Any of the Bally's properties are okay. I have not played craps in AC since COVID. The closest I've come was to the Philadelphia area and to the Washington, Baltimore metropolitan area. But for some reason, I've always liked the Borgata, even when I would go there to play in the WPT events.
Mm, yeah. All right, so Googs50 is asking, what's your go-to crap strategy? And I think we might have already touched on that a little bit,
Yeah,
but is it the hybrid?
it is. It is. And I know Greg's cringing from fives. I put a don't out. I get past the eight ways. And you get a point set, then I'm going to just offset that and hope for a couple box hits, make my money, get everything covered, and then I'm a light side player at that point. And then I decide how long I'm going to let it go and press. But remember, I always like to be collecting. Those are my ABC rules. So very seldom do you not see me take something out of a box set, with the exception of when I have 66 inside and I hit a box set. I almost always throw a dollar on to just press the whole 20 to make it 22 across.
Well, Jeff, we're at the top of the hour, but I still have several questions. Are you good to keep going
Sure.
for a few minutes?
Oh, keep right on going.
All right, so let's. A good friend out there, Rob Downs. He's ready to go on a cruise. Rob, me and you, buddy, we need to make that happen. All
Well,
right.
I think that you can make that happen with your connections, Dave, and get me a discount on one of those craps cruises, and I'll go with you. I don't care what cruise line it is.
That sounds like a plan. I, so I'll just put it out there. I don't know that I would go on a craps cruise for my very first one. So if my wife and I weren't going, I think we'd probably just go by ourselves for the first one, just to kind of get the lay of the land, see what it's all about, and then
Take a 3-day
future.
cruise from Cape Canaveral, Miami, over to Nassau, 3 days over and back, one stop and come back, and it's 3 days.
Well, I think if I were to do it, I would probably go out of Galveston. I
I've
could
been out of
drive to
Galveston.
Galveston. Yeah.
Well, they have 3-day cruises to Cozumel out of Galveston. The last Galveston trip I took went all the way down to Honduras, Belize, and Costa Rica.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Costa Rica. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go over here. Vince Ormenti says, I was hoping you would prefer a level up on multiple numbers style of play. I've yet to see a dark side player prosper.
Well, Vince, I watch a lot of your channels. I watch a lot of the stuff you do electronically with the two programs you use, and your latest thing with Crapsies that the guys at Casino Quest came out with. And I'm still analyzing that early progression before regression. But what happens once you get everything covered, even if you were to just, let's say you made $20 or $25 on that shooter, you didn't lose what would have been out there on the light side only. You don't know how many times I have a player tell me, why are they giving you chips?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay,
I like
fives.
Vince's channel, by the way. I like Vince.
Oh, we all love Vince, yeah. And in fact, Vince is another one. I need to get him on the channel here. Yeah. So fives is always saying, I've always thought of cruise ships like floating prisons with seasickness.
Well, if you do get sick from airfare, or airplane rides, or even in a smaller boat, a bigger cruise ship is not like a smaller boat. If you take one of those gambling cruises they have out there, I don't know if it's on the West Coast where you are, Greg, or on the East Coast, but if you take one of those, they can be pretty nauseating at times, depending on the sea conditions. But a cruise ship, it can rock, but for the most part, you don't know that you're on the cruise ship unless when they hit a wave where the ballasts aren't making the ship stay level, because there's a lot of technology in cruise ships today. Like you're in the showroom watching a show, and all of a sudden you hit a wave. You'll ultimately hear somebody say, "Oh, we hit another whale." But it's a big difference. That's why I said take a 3-day cruise. If it's a prison when you get off, at least you're getting out of that prison, Greg.
Nice. Also, I've been pulling up another comment here. Waylon just cracks me up. Says, I could put my table on a pontoon boat. That's
Hey,
actually doesn't sound like a bad idea.
there you go, Waylon. You might have come across something because in the Mid-Atlantic area where I live real close to his sister. We've talked about that. You can bring that pontoon boat out there. We have two big rivers. We'll take my table, set it up. We'll charge $5 to get everybody on, and we'll run the table. We'll make a fortune. I'm only kidding, Waylon. I do own a boat as well, a small boat. So that whole idea of taking a pontoon. I don't have a pontoon, but the whole idea of doing that is just fun. Because if you ever been um, I don't want to use a term that we use here in the area, but if you ever get a bunch of boats that tie up to one another and just sit out there for the day, it's very relaxing. Why not add a little bit of gaming? That's
Exactly.
sarcasm, by the way.
All right, we've got a couple more questions for you. Joe is out there. Says, do you switch your play around on a cruise with the numbers of new players on the ship? So I think if there's a lot of new players, do you just go dark side all the time?
No, I don't play. I let them roll. I watch what they're doing because I want to see what they're going to do with the dice. I know that we've all seen it, Dave. You've seen it. People set the dice, then they pick it up and they shake them in their hand. They just chunk them down there. I don't understand the setting there. I don't say anything about that. But I treat every cruise because typically by the end of the cruise, you know those players by their first name too. It'd be like you and me coming up and meeting at the table for the first time, playing an hour or two session, coming back the second day, and hey, Dave, how are you? And on the cruise ship with new players and what numbers I'm playing, typically I will start out with a don't with the well, I'll play the 6, 7, 8, a very low number because it's $5 tables. I'll put
Hmm.
$15 out, and then I'll come back up with some so to match that with the 6, 7, 8, offset that, and then I just let it roll to see what happens. Then I move into my don't hybrid side of it. And then when I see a player, I had a gentleman on the October cruise. I guarantee you, Dave, he was every bit of probably 85. I saw him roll 16 plus rolls probably 10 times on the week, and he hit the ATS multiple times, including the full thing. And that was really nice. That's the only bonus bet they have on this cruise ship is the ATS. They don't have fire
Okay.
bets or repeaters or anything.
All right, I've got two more comments. One from Old School Craps. What does your wife do while you play craps? And his plays slots, and I'm lucky to break even after her loss.
She doesn't play slots, and she's a poker player by trait. But sometimes, if it wasn't for her sitting at that Texas Hold'em Ultimate game or the WPT Heads Up game, if it wasn't for her winnings, sometimes that offsets my losses. But I'm pretty close to not being down that much with a $600 buy-in. I have a stop loss and a win rate ratio, and on Thursday, I did that 4 consecutive times. I balled in low, hit my 30%, walked away, and it was successful that way. That's one of the good things about staying at a resort. It's just like on a cruise ship. You don't have to stay there for hours on session. If you're going to drive, 2 or 3 hours, you get to the casino. You might want to stay 8 or 9 hours. But she's a gambler too, and um, she says she's a better poker player than me. But I don't play poker any longer, so I'll give her
Okay. And we're going to give Waylon the last voice here. He says, Dark side is for people that can't shoot.
that. He's probably right. He's probably right because I've rolled out several of Whalen's strategies, as several other of the YouTube contenders have, and I've had success with his strategies. I will tell you, Whalen, I tried to do the Whalen outside is what we called it on the channel, which is the 4, 5, 9, and 10, and I didn't have any luck. I even tried to do his lay 4 and 10 strategy, didn't have any luck. But all in all, you have to have a toolbox. We'll give
Yeah.
people that promote toolbox out there. Jacob talks about you got to have a toolbox, and I've got a lot of his tools out of his toolbox in my toolbox. And I'm just not just a straight dark side player. I'm not a don't. Greg's right. I'm not just a don't player, but I am dark side hybrid player, and I've seen success. And where I see success, Dave, is bankroll management. I'm not losing like I was when I began, and when I'm winning, I might walk out $80 ahead. I might walk out $800 ahead. A win's a win, and I think even a loss is a minimal loss is a win. And one of the guys I played with last night, he actually put that. If you're in the Craps Nation group there, he actually said he felt like $40 was a win to him.
Yep, absolutely. I'm the same way. All right, Jeff, thank you very much for coming on the show tonight, telling us a little bit about your journey and talking about Craps Cruises and just having a good old time with it. I
I've
really
enjoyed
appreciate
this.
you. Yeah. All
I'm
right. So
waiting to
let's
see if
go.
I'm right or wrong. Can I tell you who I think it is, or are you just going to tell us?
Well, let's come back over here for 1 second. So, just to remind everybody that the person we're talking about, the spotlight winner of the week, early member of the Craps Nation, he hosts fantasy craps tournaments, or he did in the past. Welcomes new people to the Craps Nation. Group meetups with craps. He's done several of those. He's a strong shooter, and he plays the part of a Roman centurion. So, Jeff, who do you think? Who do you think this is going to be?
Well, I've changed my mind to make it only one person. And does his group name have the name Midnight in it?
Yes, yes, it
Okay,
does. Our
it's Ted.
spotlight of the
Yep,
night
Ted
is
Berry.
Ted Berry, Midnight
Yep,
Train 66. And we
yep,
even
that's
have a
it.
picture of him as I don't know if this was actually meant to be Caesar or if he was a Roman centurion. My understanding is he dressed up at one of the Craps Nation meetups not too long ago. And just Ted's a great guy. If you don't know him yet, you need to get to know him, and he definitely deserves to be in the spotlight. So, Ted, congratulations, buddy, and I hope to play at the table with you sometime soon.
Real quick, Dave, can I have a comment about Ted?
Yeah,
Last night was the first time that I met him in person. I've worked with him through the Craps Nation group. I help him with the roster and some of the technical stuff there. But he's the guru. He's the keeper of all the members in that group. And the membership is free, as you know. It doesn't cost anything. But there's, as like other forums, there's a lot of chats that go back and forth. But you almost fooled me on one of those other ones when I reread them again the second time. But I was pretty sure it was him. Last night, I stood beside him at stick left one. He was at two. The other person, East Coast, had moved, and he had that 32 roller. And he said, "See, nobody believes me." And I'm telling you, right live on your show right now, he's the real thing. And he'll probably get mad at me for saying this. I don't know that he's watching it, but he said, "Put money on the horn. Put money on the craps numbers. Do something on the horn." He threw five horn numbers in a row, and before he hit a three and almost the fourth fire bet, but he had a 32 roller, and I'm telling you, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have walked out $400 up last night.
wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's a great story. All right, guys, I think that's going to do it. I'm sorry for going long, but Jeff, I really appreciate you sticking around. Come back next
No
week.
problem.
Let's talk to Howard Newman and see if we can improve our craps game a little bit.
I'm looking
All right,
forward to
guys,
that one.
that's going to do it for tonight. We'll talk to you all next week.